Am I the jerk for bringing my own fridge to work after my lunches kept disappearing? I work in a small office, just 10 of us, and we all share one kitchen space. That includes a communal fridge. Over the last few weeks, someone's been helping themselves to my lunch. Not just snacks here and there, full homemade meals. I'd go to grab my lunch and it would be completely gone. It's not only irritating, it's costing me money and totally throwing off my day. I brought it up a couple of times in our office group chat. I said things like, "Hey, someone's been taking my food. Please stop doing that." The responses were either radio silence or vague sympathy like, "That's so annoying," or "Some people have no manners." No one owned up to it. So I decided to solve the problem myself. I bought a small personal fridge and set it up under my desk, just big enough for a lunch and a drink. I also added a lock, because why not? Ever since then, no stolen lunches, problem solved. That is, until last Friday. One of my coworkers, I'll call her Dana, came up to me while I was eating and said the personal fridge was antisocial and kinda paranoid. She told me it made me look like I thought I was better than everyone else. I told her flat out. I was sick of my lunches vanishing and this was the only way to stop it. She said I should have just brought stuff I wouldn't mind losing, like pre-packaged snacks or frozen meals. Now a couple of others are making little digs. Stuff like, better hide your sandwich or he'll lock it in a vault. Or, don't forget, he's got the VIP fridge. I feel like I'm being made out to be the office diva just for wanting to eat the lunch I brought. So, am I the jerk for locking up my food instead of letting it keep getting stolen? Got suspended. Over a misunderstanding. So I took the best vacation on their dime on. A Monday evening, I asked my manager if it was okay for me to skip my upcoming morning shift. He assured me it was fine. He said the new hire would be in for training, and with it being a slow lunch period, they'd have more than enough coverage. That worked for me. The following day, I got a message from the owner, who's known for being as jumpy and impatient as a squirrel on espresso. He asked why I didn't show up for work. I explained exactly what my manager had told me. His response? That the trainee wasn't considered a proper server yet, and since I didn't personally get someone to replace me, it counted as a no-show. As punishment, he handed me a week-long suspension. Now here's the kicker. I'm arguably their top performer. I'm never late. I consistently get excellent tips and customers literally name-drop me in glowing online reviews. But instead of arguing, I just replied with a calm, "All right, see you in a week." What did I do with that week off? Exactly what any burned-out employee would. I slept in, binged movies, played rounds of disc golf, and spent quality time with my girlfriend and my friends. It turned out to be the most relaxing week I'd had in a long while. Come Friday night, my phone buzzed. Guess who? The frantic owner, practically begging me to come in. They were so understaffed they were contemplating putting the dishwashers on the floor. He wanted me to work Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday brunch, all while my suspension was technically still active. I politely declined and told him I still hadn't learned my lesson yet, so unfortunately, I couldn't possibly help out. When I returned the following week, the vibe had totally changed. Everyone was incredibly nice to me. Still are, actually. I got a rude passenger kicked off a flight, and I lied to do it. There's a little secret I've carried around for a while now. It might come off as petty or even a bit amusing, but it's something that still weighs on me with guilt whenever I think about it. I travel quite a bit, sometimes for work, sometimes just to get away. I fly so often that I occasionally start to recognize flight attendants on certain airlines. I doubt they recognize me, but that's not the point. One thing I've always noticed at airports is how people tend to line up 20-30 minutes before boarding even begins. Personally, I never understood the rush. Since I'm a frequent flyer, I usually just stay seated and wait for the crowd to die down. I'm not holding anyone up, just trying to avoid stress and unnecessary chaos. Anyway, on one particular trip, I was sitting near the gate when I noticed this middle-aged woman pushing her way through the boarding line. No courtesy, no excuse. Me, just plowing through people like she owned the place. She had bleached blonde hair, flashy Louis Vuitton bags, and carried herself with the kind of arrogance that practically screamed, "Do you know who I am?" But the part that stuck with me, and really ticked me off, was when she actually used her foot to nudge a small child, maybe 6 or 7 years old, out of her path. Like he was a suitcase, not a person. Fast forward to when we finally board. I get to my row, and surprise, there she is, sitting in the window seat I had specifically chosen and paid extra for. I didn't raise my voice. I just calmly told the flight attendant that she was in my assigned seat and was being rude about it. The woman instantly exploded. She started shouting that I was lying, that she got there first, and that no one had told her otherwise. I didn't push back. I just let her spiral while standing there quietly, acting as confused as possible. The more she talked, the worse it got. She insulted the flight attendant, made threats, and created a full-on scene. Eventually, they kicked her off the flight. A few people even clapped when it happened. But here's the twist. I made the whole thing up. I never actually interacted with her before that. I didn't speak to her until the moment I stood in front of that seat. I just couldn't forget the way she treated that kid. I guess part of me wanted her to face some kind of consequence. Something small. A little wake-up call, and now, I can't stop thinking about it. Sure, she was awful, but maybe she was having the worst day of her life. Maybe she was headed somewhere important. Because of me, she missed her flight, and I later found out she couldn't get another one for 2 full days. I'm not looking for anyone to tell me I did the right thing. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed to say it, to get it out. Maybe next time I catch myself thinking about that moment while walking through a terminal, I'll feel a little less heavy. New hire imploded in record time. Ever witnessed a faster crash and burn? I work in a fairly corporate setting at a mid-level position. Not too long ago, we brought on a new hire who somehow managed to turn every interaction into a full-blown crisis almost immediately after she started. From day one, she was quick to cry, constantly claiming she was being targeted by others, but never actually explaining how or why. At one point, she took a project I had nearly completed, tweaked a few fields, changed some fonts, and insisted she'd streamlined it, demanding half the credit. It didn't stop there. She filed formal complaints against several Team I members simply for correcting her work when she made mistakes. And we're not talking nitpicking here. These were serious errors that needed fixing. But according to her, if she felt embarrassed or upset by the feedback, then she was automatically the victim. I'm firmly against any form of workplace bullying, but this wasn't that. Not even close. The final straw came when she decided to randomly show up at one of our regional offices on the other side of the country, completely uninvited. While there, she allegedly made inappropriate advances toward one of our senior directors, who, by the way, is very married. That was the end of the road for her. She was terminated for misconduct not long after. Honestly, I've seen people struggle with new roles before, but this was a full-on speed run to disaster. Anyone else ever worked with someone who went down in flames that fast? AITA for refusing to pay for a drink I never wanted and walking out of my friend's birthday dinner? I'm part of a friend group of 5 women, including myself, ages ranging from 21 to 26. What happened yesterday has me wondering if I was wrong to walk out of a dinner without paying for something I didn't want in the first place. It was Lily's 21st birthday, and she wanted to celebrate with a fancy dinner. All 5 of us showed up. I'm the only one in the group who doesn't drink. Never have, never will. Everyone else knows this about me. As we got settled, Lily, all giddy, suggested I order an alcoholic drink. I politely declined. Then the rest of the group jumped in, encouraging me to just try one. Again, I said no, but they wouldn't let it go. It turned into this weird group effort to pressure me. 5 full minutes of them pushing, laughing, saying things like, "Come on, just one, and you'll like it, trust us." They even sent the waiter away because I hadn't agreed yet. I get overwhelmed when I'm being pressured by multiple people, and eventually, I gave in just to shut them up. Lily recommended a beginner-friendly drink. I told them I still didn't want it and that I knew I wouldn't like it, but they insisted. Sure enough, the drink comes, I take one sip, and yep, I hate it. They encouraged me to give it a chance, but I set it aside and they finally dropped the topic. When the bill came, I paid for my meal only and excluded the drink. That's when the questions started. Why aren't you paying for the drink? You ordered it. I told them flatly that I didn't want it. They pressured me into getting it, and I wasn't going to pay for something I never wanted in the first place. Lily tried to say, well, you could have said no, which I absolutely did, multiple times. The back and forth continued until I finally got up, left the restaurant, and sent Lily money to cover just my food. I also added that if no one wanted to cover the drink, maybe they shouldn't have pressured me into getting it. Now my husband fully supports me and even said I should put some distance between myself and these friends. But I've been getting non-stop messages from the group, accusing me of being dramatic, selfish, and making the night awkward. So I'm wondering, was I out of line for walking out and refusing to pay for the drink they pushed on me? IATA for canceling a shopping trip with my niece. After her rude comments, even though she apologized, I don't have kids, and honestly, I haven't spent a lot of time around them before my niece came into my life. I don't have younger siblings or cousins, never did any babysitting. Basically, I'm coming into this with 0 experience. I'm pointing this out because I know it's a blind spot, and it's part of why I'm posting. About a month ago, I took my niece Gabby to the park. I love hanging out with her. We usually do little outings every couple of weeks, just the 2 of us. While we were there, I mentioned an event I was going to with my boyfriend of a few years. Gabby asked to see the dress I was planning to wear, so I showed her a picture of me in it. She made a disgusted face and blurted out, "That's so ugly. You look really fat. Isn't my boyfriend gonna think it's bad?" I was stunned. She's only 13, but those words cut deep. For context, I'm not even a big person. I have some fat on my body, sure, but I'm not what anyone would call fat. I told my sister what happened, and she was surprised. She said she'd talk to Gabby. A few days later, they came over, and Gabby apologized. But it didn't feel sincere at all. She rolled her eyes, looked annoyed, and just mumbled a few words. I thanked her for the apology, but then told them I needed space and asked them to leave. Since then, I haven't made any plans to hang out with her. Before this all happened, I had promised to take her shopping for summer clothes, something I was genuinely excited about. But after what she said to me, I've completely lost interest. When we were at my mom's house for Mother's Day, Gabby brought it up and asked when we were going. I told her I'd changed my mind and that she probably already had plenty of clothes for the summer. She got upset and said, but I said, I was sorry. over and over again. I explained to her that just because you say sorry doesn't automatically fix everything. You have to show the person that you're truly sorry, and she hadn't. Now my mom and sister are calling me out, saying I'm expecting too much adult behavior from a 13-year-old and that I'm being ridiculous for canceling the shopping trip. They joked that I'm beefing with a child. They pointed out that she hasn't said anything else rude to me since and asked how long I plan to hold this against her. I'm genuinely conflicted. I usually trust their judgment, but this wasn't just a random rude moment. It felt intentionally mean. And I can't help but worry that if she doesn't learn that words have consequences, she might grow up thinking this kind of behavior is okay. I don't want her to turn into a bully. So, Ada, irritating for canceling a shopping trip with my niece. After her rude comments, even though she apologized, I don't have kids, and honestly, I haven't spent a lot of time around them before my niece came into my life. I don't have younger siblings or cousins, never did any babysitting. Basically, I'm coming into this with zero experience. I'm pointing this out because I know it's a blind spot, and it's part of why I'm posting. About a month ago, I took my niece Gabby to the park. I love hanging out with her. We usually do little outings every couple of weeks, just the two of us. While we were there, I mentioned an event I was going to with my boyfriend of a few years. Gabby asked to see the dress I was planning to wear, so I showed her a picture of me in it. She made a disgusted face and blurted out, "That's so ugly. You look really fat. Isn't my boyfriend gonna think it's bad?" I was stunned. She's only 13, but those words cut deep. For context, I'm not even a big person. I have some fat on my body, sure, but I'm not what anyone would call fat. I told my sister what happened, and she was surprised. She said she'd talk to Gabby. A few days later, they came over, and Gabby apologized. But it didn't feel sincere at all. She rolled her eyes, looked annoyed, and just mumbled a few words. I thanked her for the apology, but then told them I needed space and asked them to leave. Since then, I haven't made any plans to hang out with her. Before this all happened, I had promised to take her shopping for summer clothes, something I was genuinely excited about. But after what she said to me, I've completely lost interest. When we were at my mom's house for Mother's Day, Gabby brought it up and asked when we were going. I told her I'd changed my mind and that she probably already had plenty of clothes for the summer. She got upset and said, but I said, I was sorry, over and over again. I explained to her that just because you say sorry doesn't automatically fix everything. You have to show the person that you're truly sorry, and she hadn't. Now my mom and sister are calling me out, saying I'm expecting too much adult behavior from a 13-year-old and that I'm being ridiculous for canceling the shopping trip. They joked that I'm beefing with a child. They pointed out that she hasn't said anything else rude to me since and asked how long I plan to hold this against her. I'm genuinely conflicted. I usually trust their judgment, but this wasn't just a random rude moment. It felt intentionally mean. And I can't help but worry that if she doesn't learn that words have consequences, she might grow up thinking this kind of behavior is okay. I don't want her to turn into a bully. So, Ada? Aita for breaking up with my boyfriend. After he said he'd leave me for someone who'd give him kids. I'd been with my boyfriend for 4 years. Things were generally good, but we recently started having deeper talks about our future. And, eventually the topic of kids came up. He's always known that I've felt unsure about having children. I've never said a hard no, but I've been honest about my hesitation. Meanwhile, he's made it clear that he does want kids one day. This difference has caused tension between us before, but we always agreed to deal with it when the time comes. Well, that time came this past Saturday. The conversation escalated into a pretty emotional argument. He told me that life without kids would feel pointless to him, that he might resent me if I stopped him from having that experience. And you know what? That made sense to me. I really tried to see where he was coming from. I told him that maybe I would change my mind down the road. We're still young, and it's not like we need to decide tomorrow. He seemed really encouraged by that, and I thought we had a mutual understanding. But then, when I gently added that I also didn't want to force myself into parenthood, just because it's what he wanted, especially if I wasn't ready, he suddenly shifted gears. He flatly said that if I didn't give him kids, he'd have no choice but to leave me for someone who would. I was stunned. I had genuinely believed he wanted a future with me and that maybe we'd figure this out together. I felt blindsided. I told him how hurt I was, how I had just tried to meet him halfway, and instead of reciprocating, he threatened to leave me. His response: he said he was disappointed in me for being selfish. That was it. I snapped. I broke up with him right then and there. We haven't spoken since. Now I keep wondering, was I the asshole for leaving? Should I have been more patient? Or was it fair to walk away when someone tells you, in no uncertain terms, that they're willing to trade you? In? Ada for sending my boyfriend food at work. When my ex works there too? I was married for 4 years. We split after finding out I couldn't have kids. For me, it wasn't devastating. I've always been okay living child-free. But my ex was set on having a mini-me and continuing his legacy. Overall, our marriage wasn't bad, but that was a deal breaker for him. I wasn't heartbroken, honestly. It turns out there's much better out there. My current boyfriend is genuinely the kindest person I've ever known. For context, we live in a small town, and apparently I have a type. My boyfriend of 7 months happens to work with my ex. They're both military contractors at the same airfield, doing different tasks but in the same work zone and with the same crew. I absolutely love to cook and bake. That said, I'm trying to avoid giving myself diabetes, so I don't eat everything I make. When I was married, I used to pack my ex's lunches and occasionally send trays of baked goods to his workplace. I've taken several culinary courses and have been told what I make is bakery quality. Funny enough, when I first started dating my current boyfriend, he admitted he always looked forward to the treats I sent when I was still with my ex. Now I pack his lunches and send food with him to work, just like I used to. Apparently, the guys at work have been giving my ex a hard time. Dating hasn't gone well for him since the divorce, not surprising, and now they're ribbing him even more. They've been teasing that I upgraded. Same job title, but with a hotter guy. My boyfriend doesn't mind. The jokes all play in his favor and make him look good. The others keep saying he's lucky, and he agrees. Well, I recently got a long text from my ex, asking me to stop sending food to work with my boyfriend, because it's making things awkward for him. He also asked me not to show up at their annual 4th of July get-together. I kind of feel like he's offloading his insecurity onto me. I don't think it's fair. He's the one uncomfortable, but I'm the one being asked to change. Still, I'm not totally heartless. So if people genuinely think I'm out of line, I'll consider backing off Ata for showing up at the house where my partner's car was after. He lied about where he'd be. My boyfriend and I had been together for just over 3 years. I had no reason to suspect anything. Nothing seemed off. He told me he was going to hang out at his friend's house, a guy friend I actually know, and I know where that friend lives. He left, and about 2 hours later, my friend texted me asking, "Who does partner know on street name?" I replied, "As far as I know, no one." Why? She told me his car was parked in the driveway of a house on that street, definitely not where he said he'd be. So obviously he wasn't at his friend's house. I'm not sure if this counts as psycho behavior, but I asked her for the address. Without even thinking to text him first, to give him a chance to lie or explain, I just grabbed my keys and drove straight there. I don't know why I didn't pause. Maybe I didn't want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe deep down, I already knew. I pulled up and sure enough, his car was sitting right there in the driveway. I parked a bit down the street and texted him, "Having a good time?" He replied almost instantly, saying he and his friend were having fun building a new PC together. So now I knew, without a doubt, he was lying. I walked up to the house and knocked on the door. A woman answered. I had no idea who she was, but the moment she saw me, her face dropped. She knew exactly who I was. I stayed calm and just said, "Tell him his stuff will be on my front lawn when he wants to come and get it." Then I turned around and left. About an hour later, he came home while I was in the middle of gathering up his things. And instead of apologizing, he exploded, said I was psycho, that showing up like that was crazy, that I was out of line. I didn't even respond. I just kept packing his stuff. He tried to stop me, got in my face and yelled, "Stop!" And that's when I lost it. I shoved him away and started crying. I told him to get his stuff and leave. Then I locked myself in my office and waited until he was gone. This all happened just last night. He didn't take much, just a bag of clothes and his toiletries. Some of his stuff is still here. He hasn't messaged me, and I haven't reached out either. So here I am wondering, was I the asshole for showing up at that house after I knew he lied? AITJ for breaking up with my boyfriend, after he expected me to pay for his entire $600 birthday dinner. My boyfriend organized a birthday dinner for himself at a fairly expensive restaurant. He invited a large group, around 12 people, mostly his own friends and some cousins. I had no input on the guest list or the venue, but I was genuinely happy to show up and celebrate with him. I've always earned a bit more than he has, and I honestly don't mind covering little things now. And then, for his birthday, I paid for his cake and got him a thoughtful gift I knew he'd really appreciate. I fully intended to cover his meal too. That seemed reasonable to me. But then the check came. It was over $600, way more than I was expecting, even for a group that size. And without even a conversation, he just looked at me and said, "You've got it, right?" Right there in front of everyone. No warning, no discussion, just pure assumption. I was completely stunned. I leaned in and told him quietly that I wasn't comfortable paying for the entire table. His demeanor changed instantly. He got cold, visibly annoyed, and accused me of making a scene even though I had barely said anything. A few people at the table looked just as confused as I felt. I ended up paying for his meal, left money to cover the cake, and left early. I cried in the Uber because I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just been used. Later that night, he texted me saying I had embarrassed him. I told him it wasn't fair to put me in that situation without even talking to me first. I broke up with him the next day. Since then, a few of his friends have been messaging me, calling me selfish. Now I feel torn, like maybe I overreacted. But at the same time, I really do feel like he saw me more as a wallet than a partner. ATJ. For ending things over this?